Have you ever picked up an ancient text, like the Bible, read a passage, and you're just left thinking, what on earth does that even mean? Yeah, sometimes these texts can feel really confusing, almost alien, or just plain strange to us as modern readers. So today, we're going to dive into exactly why that is, and explore a way to start reading these texts on their own terms.
All right, let's just jump right in. We'll start with an example that's kind of perplexing, but it does a great job of highlighting a common problem we all run into when we try to read ancient literature.
So take a look at this verse. It's from Deuteronomy, from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it might make you do a bit of a double take. It says God fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. Wait a second. Sons of God? Plural? I mean, for a lot of us who grew up with a very specific monotheistic framework, language like that is jarring. It just doesn't fit into the neat little theological boxes we've built.
And that right there is the big question. How are we supposed to make any sense of ideas like this from our 21st century perspective? Are these just, metaphors? Is it poetry? Or is there something much deeper going on here that we might be missing completely?
This is where we hit what scholars call the filter problem. And honestly, it's a great name for it. Think of it like you're wearing sunglasses inside. We all have these invisible filters, our modern worldview, our cultural baggage, our own religious traditions. And without even realizing it, those filters can tint or even totally block out what the text is actually saying, especially when it's something that doesn't quite fit our own ideas.
So you can see there are basically two ways to go here. The filtered approach, well, it tries to domesticate the strange stuff in the text. To tame it, to make it safe, and make it fit into our comfortable modern world. But the other approach, that's more like a kind of intellectual time travel. It challenges us to step into the author's world, to actually embrace the strangeness and try to understand what they meant on their terms, not ours.
Okay, so we've got this problem. We all have these filters. What do we do about it? How do we take them off? Well, that brings us right to our next section, the context-first solution.
Yeah, this quote right here, it absolutely nails it. The whole argument is that to really get what an ancient document is saying, we have to prioritize the world it came from, not the world that happened to read it hundreds or thousands of years later. It's a simple idea, really, but wow, the implications are massive.
Now, the fancy academic name for this method is a context-oriented hermeneutic. I know, it's a mouthful, but all it really means is that our interpretation, that's the hermeneutics part, should be guided by the author's world. The goal is to try and read the text not as a 21st century person, but as if we were sitting right there, part of its very first audience.
And here's what that actually looks like when you apply it. For the Old Testament, the real primary context isn't a modern church or synagogue, it's the ancient world of Mesopotamia, Canaan, and Egypt. And for the New Testament, it's not our world, but the very specific, very vibrant Jewish culture of the Second Temple period. These were the mental landscapes where these texts were born and raised.
All right, enough theory. Let's actually put this to work. Let's go back to that confusing passage from Deuteronomy, the one about the sons of God, and see what happens when we try this context-first approach. So, when you start digging into the literature of Israel's neighbors, from places like Canaan or Mesopotamia, you find something fascinating. This idea of a divine council was everywhere. It was like part of the shared conceptual furniture of their world. Their worldview included a high God who presided over this whole assembly of lesser divine beings, and these beings were given authority over the different nations.
And this is the cool part. Once you have that piece of context, all these other weird passages just click. You remember Psalm 82, where God stands up and judges the gods? For centuries, people have tried to explain that away, saying, oh, it's just a metaphor for human judges. But with this new lens, you see it for what it is. It's a cosmic courtroom drama where the God of Israel is holding the corrupt divine rulers of the other nations accountable. The puzzle piece just fits perfectly.
But it's not just about solving little puzzles here and there. This is where it gets really interesting. What's so fascinating is how this approach starts to reveal a single coherent story that's woven all through these texts, a story that, honestly, we would otherwise completely miss.
There's this idea called intertextuality, and it's key here. See, the biblical authors weren't writing in a vacuum. They were constantly talking to each other across the centuries. They were picking up on earlier themes, developing them, and expanding on them. It's like this grand, unfolding conversation that spans hundreds of years.
And here is where it all just comes together. Follow this story. It's like a 3-act play. Act 1, Deuteronomy 32. The nations are handed over to these sons of God. Act 2,
Psalm 82. These same divine beings are judged for totally corrupting their rule. And the climax, Act 3, the New Testament. Jesus' work is framed as a victory over these very same powers and principalities, reclaiming the nations for God. It's this epic, coherent story that was there all along, hiding in plain sight until we put on the right contextual glasses.
Wow, I mean, seeing a hidden narrative like that really shows you how powerful this is. So let's kind of pull back for a second and just recap. Why does all of this matter? What are the big takeaways?
It really boils down to this. Our traditions, as important as they are, can also act like blinders. But by shifting our focus to the author's world, we start to see the text's own internal logic. We unlock these incredible narratives we never knew were there. And, I think this is the most important part, we learn to treat the strange parts not as problems we need to explain away, but as essential, load-bearing pillars of the actual story.
And you know, that really leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? This isn't just about one or two weird passages. It's an entire way of reading. It really makes you wonder, what other profound, challenging, and beautiful ideas are just waiting there to be discovered in these ancient texts, if only we're willing to set our own filters aside and meet them on their own terms?